Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to RaceFace.Pro, welcome to LMU, and welcome to round 7 right here at Algarve. My name is Stephen Koenig, and joining me in the box is the one and only single-seater slash GT3 driver that went and suggested he could be here, and we brought him in kicking, dragging, and tied up in the chair. Cameron de Bastos. Cameron, how are you feeling?
Good evening, Stephen. I didn't come in kicking and screaming. I mean, we're in Algarve. It's like, it is my second home, pretty much home track, because of passports. But no, yeah, it's great to be back and great to be back on air. This time with no laptop microphones as we had last week.
And right here at Algarve, round 7 of the championship. Cam, we know it's tight in the points. Take us through who is sitting where, because with being round 7, it's either make or break for many of these drivers if they want to get the victory here tonight and to keep themselves within the championship for the final round, or whether they are going to be calling it and saying, well, it's yours, congratulations.
Well, absolutely, Stephen. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the results, and one can pretty much say that Martin Jacobs has snatched his trophy and is keeping it all to himself, running away like a thief in the night. With 183 points, he's leading the championship, followed closely by Johan Blichner, but there is about a 25-point gap between the two of them. So Johan Blichner must either hope that the likes of Martin Jacobs is not here tonight or just doesn't pitch. But the fight for second and third is the one that we need to keep a close eye on. Gerrit Beekers is in third position right after Johan Blichner, only separated by 10 points between the two of them. So Gerrit Beekers really needs to outscore the likes of Johan Blichner, otherwise he will not be able to snatch that second place back from Blichner. In fourth place we've got Brandon Kruger, unfortunately not racing tonight, and also didn't race last weekend, so he unfortunately has given up his hopes for the championship. However, right on his heels in fifth place we've got Sean Stradom, the LNR driver, making some headway and sitting in 58 points in fifth position, only a few points behind the likes of Brandon Kruger. In sixth place, we've got Chris Collison on 65 points, and a 1-point difference between himself and Ruan Kleinans separate 6th and 7th. And in 8th place, we've got the one and only Paul the Wall Fainter. 10 points separate him and Ruan Kleinans. So that's a bit of a battle that we need to look closely. But do not just follow on those three. In 9th place, we also have Herman Percival with 1-point difference between himself and Paul Fainter, as well as Esteban Pretorius. But Esteban Pretorius, unfortunately, not going to be making any appearances for the rest of the season. Then in 11th position, we have Arno Kraus sitting on 41 points. And in 12th position, we have Moath Musa on 36 points. In 13th position, we have Niels Greening on 33 points. And closely behind, Stanton Augustus in 14th position with 31 points. In 15th, we've got Kirby Chorn in 28. So there's battles all up around the field, even down into our 20th. So 16th position, we've got Kirsten Peters on a total of 26 points. And then finally, Carl Oosthuizen follows up in 17th, and 18th position is Viete Buerta. That is pretty much our top 20, Stephen, with a lot of drivers still hoping to make some moves going up for our final 2 rounds here. And round 7 kicking off in a little country called Portugal, in a city called Algarve, which is, Portimao with a region called Algarve. So a lot of people get that confused, saying the circuit is Portimao when it's actually Algarve, but it's actually located in Portimao, Algarve, which is a region inside of Portugal. So it's a bit of a roller coaster ride, I will say, Stephen. The circuit is very tricky, up and down, left, right, very flowing. So the drivers will need to be very, very patient on throttle controls, as well as how they brake, because many of the braking zones is always downhill. So drivers will be something to take note of. But that's just something that I've experienced. I don't know. Any unique experiences from yourself, Stephen, when it comes to this little circuit in Portugal?
Passing. Big one is passing. Lots and lots of slipstreaming to come by, but also the sharp hairpins. You think you can go down on the inside, but it'll end up getting a lot of understeer. You can also foul up your drive on the exit. Doesn't matter whether you're in GT3, LMP cars, in any open wheeler, it is a circuit that will challenge you to the utmost level. Now, with 10 minutes left to qualifying, we have got a very interesting situation here, because Herman Percival currently is at the top. He was a second. He was roughly 0.048 of a second slower than Martin Jacobs in practice. He now currently leads out the field. Martin Jacobs 0.098. Chris Collison follows up in third place. We've seen some good drives out of him, mostly when it gets a little bit wetter. This time out, He's taking the fight to the sharp end of the field. Jan Bloknoot out on circuit wants to try and get ahead of Martin Jacobs, who currently holds on to second. So RTA and Stingers coming in with the fight. Paul Fenter also has been improving. He's in 6th position, coming across the line now to move himself right up into 2nd position for the LNR team, just to be beaten up by his teammate Sean Straden, who managed to snatch a podium at Fuji. So some interesting factors coming into play. A couple of drivers not here tonight, but what we do have here, Cameron, is if you look out the commentary box, take a look at our virtual grandstands. We have got Griffin Sim Racing, we've got RTA, we've got Stingers, we have got everyone joining us here tonight for round 7, the second last round of the season, with everything to play for the championship. And with Martin out on circuit, now at the top of the charts, all he needs to do is finish. Just finish. Just get it done, carry the momentum through, and move up in the championship, which will make it his 2nd championship ever in sim racing, and done it in the first quarter of the year, taking not only the Project Vapor Championship, but will be taking the RaceFace.Pro, sponsored by EG Evolved, LMU Championship here tonight. So it's going to be a lot of pressure for him to keep it together. With a 144.8 though over Johan Bloknoot into 2nd place, there's still a lot of time, and drivers have an option to go through, but we cannot take out the factor. This circuit is brutal on tires, with its up and down undulations. It's got change and camber to it as well. It is fast and putting lots and lots of pressure on the outside of your car through the left and right corners, depending on where you're favoring it more. But also running offline is going to be a big issue here as well, because there's not a lot of room to not get a track limit exceeded, and we've seen those drive-throughs take a championship and just tear things apart. But it looks like it's going to be LNR and RTA that are fighting for that top spot at the moment.
Absolutely, Stephen, and it is the nature of Algarve. It's very off camber corners, meaning that tires on the outside will be straining a lot, especially heading into hard braking zones, and that will be at the top of the hill, which we'll just see right as you do see Sean Stratham going around there. And it's hard, fast flowing corners, so drivers will need to be mindful, specifically turn 1. If you run wide, track limits will slap you on the wrist. You will be penalized for that from our race stewards. But the corner I'm talking about earlier was this one. It's a bit of a crest, then there's a dip, and then immediately a hard sweeping left-hander up the hill. Your braking will flatten out and plateau a little bit, but you need to be careful because your speed is going to be trying to push you out. You're going to have to understeer to get the car to rotate, and it's going to be very, very difficult. And then it's dropping down again, and a long uphill haul to another hard braking zone in a tight corner. So tires will be something that drivers will need to manage, specifically out here at Algarve. It's going to be very difficult. And it's something they need to keep in mind. These tires are supposed to last them at least an hour, maybe even around 45 minutes if they really want to gamble it. But we all know that they won't normally change tires. They'll normally just try and go for a little splash and dash. So drivers will need to be very, very mindful of that. But take a look at this. Johan Bloknoot, fastest in the first sector, is hunting down the likes of Gerrit Beekes. Now, we did speak about Beekes and Bloknoot, both of them fighting it out to try and get that second spot if the Jacobs does go and not make any progress towards the championship. I mean, it's a 25-point gap between Jacobs and Bloknoot. So it's going to be difficult for the two drivers to really work together, and they need to really hope that luck is on their side for Jacobs to make a mistake, to not get the car back out going again, and allow them to close that gap even more in an attempt to go and get this. But Bloknoot, fast in the first sector, fastest in the second sector, dropping down the final corner, long run up the uphill, crosses the line, and will he go to the top of the timing tower? Yes, he does. Let's wait here. Ooh, this is a very long run. There we go. There we go. Second, not first. Only your 100th of a second separating him and Beekes. That is a micrometer size in terms of racing. It is not easy to get that close to your closest rival at the top.
And Martin on the second row, waiting it out with 4 minutes left. And this is an interesting take on how the circuit is favoring more of the unknown names or ones that you don't usually see starting up in first place. I mean, we've seen Bierkus out at the top of the field a few times, but against Bluffnote going into the turn 1, we've only seen that once this season. Martin Jacobs is going back out to see if he can try and snatch that first place again, but it's just not turning out to be his luck. Sean Stratham and Paul Fenter going and trading blows with one another the whole time does make things a bit more interesting, because the logistical nightmare racing team trying to move forward. The inter-team fights that is happening on circuit, and also the team rivalries that are out on track, is going to make something rather interesting for the championship. Because, Cameron, think about this. Do you aim for the driver championship, knowing there's a team championship, and that your teammate can gain an advantage to move forward? Do you benefit your teammate and play a defensive game, or do you go on the attack and try and claim the drivers championship? This is where, how much can the drivers take that red mist that gets put down soon as they drop the visor, get rid of that to focus on what they need to do in the championship, or have a calming voice in the head saying, listen, no use fighting each other. Let's rather think about the strategy here and have an agreement for it. I know for myself, and I know for the couple of races that I've had, if it's that little bit of a moment where you can lift, help your teammate move forward, just to help with the championship, that's one of the factors that I've seen work out in before. But won't lie, there has been a little bit of door banging on the way through, because there's pride on the line. To win an LMU Championship, the first LMU Championship by RaceFace.Pro in 2026, to stand there with that pride, do you really want to be the one coming off the throttle, or are you going to hope that your teammate is going to make that call?
Stephen, I think the one word you mentioned there that's very critical is the word pride. We all know in real world, race car drivers are all stubborn as a mule and do not listen to anything. We've seen it in real world with Max and GP going at one another, and I do see a bit of a stirred look from my fellow team member that's come to support me, and also a bit of a spotter. But it is something that does go. We've seen it before, red mist. It puts a bit of a clouding into judgment, and drivers do tend to say, listen, I want to have the brag rights saying I'm the fastest in the team between the two of us. I've done it myself. I've shot myself with the foot. So I think it needs to be a discussion that needs to be held before heading to a circuit and unloading the cars, because otherwise there is no use in unpacking the cars and taking it to the circuit. Now we do see Bluffnote putting in an absolute stonker of a lap, going 144.322, dethroning Bierkus by 0.12 of a second, and it looks like Martin Jacobs is having some serious difficulties.
He's trying to warm up his tires in the most peculiar way possible, and that is by stopping and giving it throttle to slide the car out, just to bring the temperature right up to the top, to maximize the temperature in the tires. It's an unconventional approach. Generally, you get to see it when guys are stopping on the start line to get themselves going, a little bit of a burnout to practice starts, or even to go and just generate that heat. But unfortunately, it can land up with someone going right into the back of you. So you've got to make sure you've got a lot of clearance, and you can also overheat the tires. But this shows how serious he's taking it, to even go to the point of, I'm going to physically scrub these tires so hard that they're going to have a lap with me. It's sliding the car out. Something in ACC you avoid doing like the plague. And
abandoned
his lap immediately in the first sector with 9 seconds to go. Knew that there wasn't enough time. Chris Collison up on his personal in the first sector, but Bluffnote holds out the top with Bierkus and Stratham going and chasing down. Jacobs and Fenter are going to go side by side. This is going to be interesting, because the team rivalry is now in full effect, with our LNR, Stingers and RTA all together Herman Percival is the only outlier in 7th place that hasn't got a team that he's partnered up with, and he's trying to keep up with Chris Collison, who is looking to get into that top 5 to try and help Bierkus up. Remember, if he can get into third place, he can chase down the likes of Bierkus. The two of them can work together, pushing the train forward, but he has to beat out a 144.55 to get ahead of Sean Stratham. So very, very close in terms of times. Not a lot of room between them. And our drivers, bailing out of the lap. He was up on the sectors and bailed out of the lap.
It might have been a team call to preserve the car. We do not know. I think that's something that we need to do. I will need to take a look into, because you do know in some sims that the damage you have in your car from qualifying does sometimes carry over. However, it did set the grid, and apologies for that. Had a bit of a sneeze attack there. But now this the grid has been set, and now we turn our attention towards our starting grid for round 7 here at Algarve. Yeah, look at it in Portimao in Portugal there. Let's take a look there. In the front row, we have Johan Blugnoot leading the way from Gerard Bierkus, really having an upper hand over his teammate. In the second row, we have the likes of Sean Stratham, and right next to him, the championship leader, Martin Jacobs, hoping to fight his way back to the front. We already see them coming together at Fuji. In the third row, we've got Paul Fenton in 5th place, followed by Chris Collison, deciding not to put in a faster lap time. In row 4, we have Herman Percival in 7th, followed by Brandon Holtzhausen. And then in row 5, 9th place, Mr. Flick Floor himself, Neil Greening, and Kirby Chorn in 10th place.
Yeah,
in 6th row, we've got... that's all of them.
Rob van der Heever and Gerard VDV van der Vente getting in. Johan van der Vente and Lucas Joubert will be going and rounding out the pack. With drivers at the ready and looking to move forward, a massive welcome to everyone around the world, to all our virtual grandstands, our petrol heads, looking at LMU. The new champion, the new sim that has been taking the world by storm, and in 2027, looking to head over to console with crossplay, is going to be an absolute great one. But eyes to the sharp end of the field. Blugnoot and Bierkus, two drivers that are close in points, now needing to throw down the gauntlet on one another. Sean Stratham in 3rd place, looking to move forward. Martin Jacobs, the current leader of the championship. I mean, this is going to be a mental drive for 1 hour, 20 minutes. We have literally got the top rows, the top 3 rows is all in for the championship here. Top 3 rows can make it or break it tonight to either become champion and cement their legacy here at Algarve, here at RaceFace for 2026, or are they going to lose sight heading into turn 1 as the lights are at the ready? Blugnoot and Bierkus hang on to the front, waiting to drop the clutch, waiting to get on the throttle, and waiting for their opportunity. 1 hour, 20 minutes worth of racing, a pit stop that's to come, tires possibly put on, fuel is definitely going to be put in, and we are racing, charging off the line. And looks like Blugnoot got the run and now needs to try and guard the line into turn 1. Bierkus gets on the inside. Sean Stratham nips up the inside of him, and take a look at Martin Jacobs, who goes a long way around to try and avoid any of the chaos, and now is slotting himself just ahead of the pack. But it is Bierkus losing out a lot of time in that Lamborghini, and has got his teammate Chris Collison, Quibby Turon, and Herman Percival chasing each other behind them. Neil Greening, Gerard van der Vente, Rob van der Heever, Johan van der Vente, and Lucas Joubert, as it's late on the brakes for Johan. And wow, oh wow, narrowly missing the grid. Rob van der Heever gets the nail up on the inside, and it's contact with a bit of a sorry as well from Johan van der Vente to Rob van der Heever on that very, very close call that could have ended up in tears.
Absolutely, Stephen. And again, I just going to look a bit back at that race start. Unfortunately, from the race start, Martin Jacobs got side by side with Chris Carlson, and Chris Carlson got then feisty with the likes of Sean Stratham, and unfortunately getting hit is Collison and being sandwiched and forces the likes of Martin Jacobs out and over the circuit. However, it can be deemed as gaining an everlasting advantage. That can be something that might be later looked at by the race stewards. So that's something that needs to be dictated. But take a look at this. It is RTA, LNR, RTA, LNR. It is a double stack sandwich, and I've already had my dinner, Stephen, but I'm not really hungry, but these guys are definitely hungry for a fight. So I'm curious to see now how this is going to be playing out. Will Blugnoot play the ultimate team game and force straight on into the likes, well, into the car of Martin Jacobs as an attempt to get him off of his tail? Or will Blugnoot say, okay, you keep him busy, I've got my sights set on scoring more points?
I think at this point, it's going to be better to have Blugnoot at the front, as you see Paul Venter going a little bit wide and having Gerrit Bucas on the back of him. Remember, if Blugnoot gets a victory here, that is going to move him far forward to capture the silver. For Martin Jacobs, third place is just fine and dandy. Second place is even better. Last thing you want to do is get swallowed up into a battle. Further back, we got Chris Collison, and as the drivers Constantina into the hairpin, you can see everyone trying their best. Herman Percival gets right on the back of Chris Collison. He's got Kirby Turan, who's on a stellar drive here tonight, and is right on the back of Herman, trying to figure out where he can get the drive. Gerard van der Venter also on a great one. He's got Rob van der Heever. The two of them brawling out. Neil Greening just in the background. Oh, never mind. Neil Greening getting a snap oversteer. He's able to bring it back, but that has now brought him right into the clutches of Jan van der Venter. And here comes Lucas Jabert, who's also trying to see if he can make up a little bit of time. Rounding out the back is Brandon Holthazen after a mistake. He was further up in the field, had a mistake, down into last place, and now just trying to bring him back into the clutches of the rest of the field. That slipstream is extremely important around this circuit. You need to keep within it. It doesn't matter what car you're in, fast or slow, doesn't matter GT3, GT4, LMP3, LMP2, hypercar, any of it. The moment you come out of the slipstream, you pretty much can count yourself dead in the water, and you're going to have to plan out your pit strategy to get closer to the field. So it's all about running in that train at the moment and not pushing way too hard. Think about the fuel usage, think about the plan. But to also talk about how the slipstreaming benefits people, as we do see everyone fighting it out, Gerrit Bucas, who is last in this train, this 5-car train, doesn't have to be on the throttle as hard and can just follow within the slipstream, and that has already got him down to a 146.0, while the closest to him is Sean Stratham and Blugnoot with a 46.5 and a 46.2. So just by being at the back of the train, not having to push as hard, your lap times are as close to the sharp end of the field, and you can start thinking about saving that little bit of fuel without losing too much time.
Absolutely, Stephen. This is a bit, if you want a good explanation, or, well, I'm not saying Stephen's explanation isn't good, but if you want a visual explanation, go look up NASCAR bump drafting. It's one of the best examples and visual representation of how it can work. They can follow, get the same amount of speed, but the car at the back, if it's a 7-car train, the car at the back is only at half throttle, meaning they can go longer and extend their stint. Same goes for GT3 racing. Yes, there might be turns, twists, whatever. It's the exact same thing, and you also will be preserving your tires, but you do need to be careful. Being too long in that slipstream can sometimes cause a bit of overheating within the car. Not enough cool air going through that radiator to cool the fluids within the car. However, all that slipstreaming, all the technical nonsense out the way, it looks like Martin Jacobs does not have an answer when it comes to the flying Porsche of Sean Stratham. The gap I've been monitoring, it hasn't gotten bigger, but it also hasn't gotten very smaller. After his very far run out at turn 1, it seems to be that Sean Stratham is able to just keep that Porsche, just tune that Porsche perfectly quite well in an attempt to go and just hunt that gap down, as we do see this. And he's got, Martin Jacobs has got Paul Venter, his entire rearview mirror and rear view camera full. These cars do have a bit of a camera system within them that has a little dash that shows you which car is going to in your class, which car is attacking you, and also with the big arrow pointing down, and also how far back they are with a bunch of grid lines showcasing that. So it's very interesting little bit of how these cars are working and how it's going, but I don't think, especially thinking back to qualifying, Martin Jacobs abandoning a lap where he had a whole circuit pretty much himself, only having to share it with Chris Collison, and then rather said, I will settle for fourth position. It's quite interesting.
Interesting calls all over, but it looks like the train's starting to open up as Paul Venter opening up a little bit of room to Bucas, trying to catch up to Martin Jacobs. Further back, Chris Collison having Herman Percival right up his gearbox, trying to see where he can go. Kirby losing out that little bit of drive, now sits in a little bit of no man land, and we'll hope for these two to just duke it out so he can get that little bit closer. Rob van der Heever and Gerald van der Venter, same answer to it. Close to one another, but lost track of Johan van der Venter. Every time they go on the attack, there is a bit of time lost, but also time gained. And this is just making the field stretch out into little silos at the moment. The biggest of the trains is our sharp end of the field, but no one pulling the trigger on each other just as yet. They're waiting, biding their time, and not having to go on a solid attack, knowing that 10 minutes is not even done yet, and they're just conserving that fuel. Undercut is a possibility, overcuts are a possibility. We saw what happened at Fuji, and we saw how close they got to the end, especially Blocknote and Jacobs, that by a fraction kept Sean Stradham in that third place after they ran into a little bit of contact. And the question is, now with Sean Stradham slotted in the middle, how much information are they giving to one another about what Sean Stradham's doing? If he's aiming to the right, aiming to the left, or are you watching your mirrors to ensure you're not getting attacked in the process as well?
I think one thing that we have learned from the season so far, Stephen, is that the RTA drivers do not share a common Discord call, as we have seen some very strange communication happening between some of the team members, and that's ended up in a bit of collision between two of them. But Paul Venter now has Harold Bierkes keeping his mirror full, and a few moments ago into turn one, I do think many of these drivers are now also cautious, because guess what? Lap one, turn one, drivers ran wide. They just got four wheels a fraction of a millimeter past that white line, and the system pinged them saying, you got a off track, you didn't give back the time. That is a 0.5, I believe, penalty point towards you. If you get 5, you do get the drive through. And one thing I can say is Algarve is a very tricky circuit, and it will give you penalties if you exceed its track limits. It's very flat, very wide runoffs, so you have to be very, very mindful. But now, that third player, look at the back end. Herman Percival already closing in on Chris Collison. Chris Collison having a bit better shape in the last couple of weeks compared to his race pace, getting that Lamborghini dialed in well. But I did speak to Herman Percival earlier throughout this week also as they arrived at the circuit. He says he can't wait for the team to change manufacturer. He is tired of the McLaren. He got it to work, but he's tired of it. He wants a car that's able to ride the bumps, be able to take more of an aggressive driving style, and just use the raised height of the car to go over any of these anti-cut strips. But as we see under braking, though, the McLaren does have that beauty in it. It is exceptionally well on braking if you can get it right and also apply the power at the same time. But Chris Carlson moving very, very well, sitting pretty all the way up in 6th position, just keeping Herman company for now while his teammate Gerrit Bierkes goes and takes the fight to the likes of LNR and RTA boys.
Well, just talking about a driver that didn't get too comfortable with the car, Neil Greening is out of the race, unfortunately going and sustaining too much damage that the car needed to be retired. So he will not see the end of round 7, and unfortunately that's going to move him down the order in points as well. So we're starting to see a little bit of endurance coming in. This circuit is, I would say, a difficult one because of how flowing it is, how tight some of the corners are, but it's one of these tracks that you eventually get into autopilot mode. You know that you got to brake and it's a right-hander, then you accelerate a little brake, right-hander. You get into a rhythm and you get into autopilot mode. So the moment you do that, your mind starts to wander. It starts to look backwards. You start to look at different factors that are around you. You start to see the points, and oh, that's a big look for Paul to try and get it done. And once again, talked about the hairpin, and Paul getting a pro drive out of it has just opened up to allow the likes of Kerry Bucas to get into the fight. Paul diving. Can he get it done? Can he get it done? He's going to try. Both on the throttle, both trying their luck. Unfortunately, V8 beats out straight 6 turbocharged, but it's going to be Martin Jacobs to try and guard the line against the stable BMW. The Mercedes of Martin trying to run around the outside, and this is only helping Bucas out, who hangs on the back, waiting for his opportunity, seeing the two battle it out. So he's just giving enough room and picking which line is quicker so he can move forward. Oh, Paul Fenter over the curbing. Martin Jacobs getting thrown out a little bit wide there. The two of them are not holding back, and that's allowed Short Stratum a little bit of a contact moment, a second, and both turned round. Both turned round and nearly into the field. Chris Collison and Herman Percival nearly got caught in that. Martin Jacobs managing to get restarted, and he's on the back of Herman Percival. Not what he wanted to have. Neither for Paul. Both unyielding, both as stubborn as a brick wall, and both landed up as a brick wall on a racetrack.
Paul Fenter going and claiming his nickname Paul the Wall there properly by becoming another brick in the wall there, but some close fighting, unfortunately, some contact going there, but I will give them a 10 out of 10 for the synchronized spin, even though the synchronization wasn't there, so maybe a 9.5, but now Martin Jacobs has a whole lot of work to do. Herman Percival says, nope, thank you, I do not want to get involved in this spicy little battle. Now, we do know that Portugal has some good food when it comes to spice. If you don't trust me, take my word for it, don't go Google it. But no, I'm kidding. It's some very good spice, especially if you had barraquillos here in South Africa. Portuguese style food, if you go for peri peri, it's even very much better. But the track is also giving us some very spicy battles out here with the likes of the drivers going at one another now. Now, Martin Jacobs has a lot of work to do now. He's in 5th, but he needs to claw back more points. This has promoted Bucas up into 3rd, Sean Stratum up into 2nd. Well, Sean Stratum was already 2nd. Is seeing his championship hopes slipping away ever so slightly. If he has one more collision like that, it will drop him all the way to the back, making his fight back even more difficult. But this has destroyed the race, though, for Paul Fenter, who's all the way down in 8th position. Had a great start, unfortunately. Now, not there in the fight anymore. But now, Chris Collison needs to play the ultimate team game when it comes to defending like a lion against Martin Jacobs. Now, we do know Martin Jacobs, a lot of good pace underneath that Mercedes AMG Evo GT3. But also the Huracan Evo 2 is also quite powerful, and he needs to play the team game to prevent Jacobs from getting closer to his teammate. You see up there in the front shot of Gerrit Bucas. All to play for. Will team orders come into effect saying, listen, make that Lamborghini even wider than it currently is. Make it as wide as possible.
Turn it into an Audi sedan as quick as you can. Herman Percival not going on the attack is not helping Chris Collison much here. And Martin Jacobs looks like he's just brought the aggression down and is going to be focusing on just sustainment at the moment. So Chris Collison trying to defend the line, but Martin Jacobs can take a look. Lines aren't as aggressive. He's not trying to force that nose in the whole time. Managing his braking, that's allowing Herman Percival to slowly put a little bit of pressure back onto him, and it's now just focusing on the drive. Don't overuse the car, don't get too aggressive. You're still within the point range here. It's still a possibility for the championship. Remember, first place is getting 50 points, so first place is fantastic. Down in 5th, it's not too bad considering you 20 points ahead. Now Martin trying to go for the inside line through the sweep, and it's going to be Martin just ahead of Chris Collison, who had to brake extremely hard. That brought Herman Percival back into play, and it was a waiting game just for the line to open up. And now Martin Jacobs up into 4th place. Can Chris Collison and Herman Percival have a little bit of a fight back to draw the race a little bit closer? Rubbing is racing, they say, but when it lands up, putting you back through the field, well, it's sometimes not nice to share paint, and it's rather to keep the crayons to oneself. Jan Blicknote holds the fastest lap time of the race with a 1:45.520. Sean Stratham in second place sits with a 1:45.548. Gerrit Bierkes sits with the fastest lap time of the race. He's just taken it with a 1:45.416. So he's closing the distance, trying to become a little bit more of a threat to the sharp end, knowing that he has got Martin Jacobs in fourth place. Chris Collison having to re-switch his focus back to Herman Percival, who wasn't putting the pressure on Martin Jacobs, minded out the way, allowed the driver to go through, saying, I'm not worrying about you. You're a different pace to me. But for Chris Collison, you're a lot closer to me. For Chris Collison, late break, try to take the dive on Martin Jacobs. That only allowed Herman Percival to gain the advantage and move forward. A little bit further behind, we've got Kirby Turon, and he is trying to fight out against Paul Venter on the way back and trying to take deep breaths at the moment. Rob van der Heever and Brandon Holzhuizen keep each other busy. The Logistical Nightmare Racing up against the Griffin Sim Racing in the gold of Rob van der Heever. Gerard van der Venter leading out the brothers and still keeping a great bit of momentum. Back to the sharp end. Rob van der Heever unfortunately ran out wide as we just got a shot of it. And now Brandon Holzhuizen having to keep it all together, as it's going to be Rob looking left, looking right, trying to navigate around. Both in the BMWs, both have got the same advantage and disadvantage in this race, maintaining those turbos, maintaining the pace, and having to really navigate. And as soon as you're close like this, you're now taking that aero off the car, off the nose and off the tail of the race cars, and that means you're going to have a little bit more of a tricky situation to deal with in the sweeps, relying purely on mechanical grip and not on that aero giving you some sort of advantage. A little bit further down, Kirby and Paul trying their luck yet again.
Absolutely, Stephen. These GT3 cars have an immense amount of downforce. I see a bit of a twitch there from Kirby Turon. Paul saying, thank you very much. I will take this position from you. And now it is now setting his sights to go forward and attack, get closer to Chris Collison and Herman Percival there. But to go back there, you mentioned about the mechanical grip within these cars. The GT3s have a lot of downforce and also have assist like traction control, ABS, and then also the mechanical grip there. Trusting a car enough to stick when you have no aero on the front of it because you're following close behind something is not just something that develops instantaneously within the car. It's time spent within the car. Seat in, pretty much, yeah, BIM, bum in seat, pretty much, to go and get to know how the car performs, when you can trust the brakes, and also how you are able to follow closely to one another. So this is something that the drivers will have probably spent some time doing, either following a teammate close by or even in practice lobbies that we have available in for the schedule that we're following, where drivers are able to go throughout the week, go do public lobbies against other drivers and also just learn how close it is. Yes, they want to win those also, but also just a bit of fact-finding research in order for the drivers to develop the setups they're going to be using, as well as what the car's limitations is, as we do see Herman Percival putting foot flat Lamborghini, the McLaren, saying, I am now awake and ready to go, as he sets his sight to hunt after the likes of Martin Jacobs.
Now this is going to play a bit of an interesting run. Jan Blickner and Sean Stratham have been keeping up with one another, not trading blows, but with Stratham just trying to keep that Porsche onto the back of Blickner. Gerrit Bierkes holding on to third place, sitting 2.5 seconds adrift of them, but unfortunately with no major attacks going on, there isn't going to be any way of him moving forward without getting some time, with 1 hour remaining. Now I'm going to bring up a separate little question, and that is damage onto the like of Martin Jacobs' car and onto Paul Venter's car. Now, LMU, as has been explained to me, is similar to a set of Corsa where you've got body damage, which is aero getting affected in some way or some form. It's a dent in the door. That will give you a bit of a yellow ring on the outside. The moment it goes to orange is where it's more impact to mechanical But on a circuit like this, aero is something that needs to keep you going. It needs to move forward. So sharing a bit of paint does lead into it. And with two cars currently sharing paint pretty hard against one another at about 110 kilometers an hour when they hit doors and twisted round, how much are they suffering in those cars? And how much is the tires taking a beating as well? That leads into, can you sustain a single set of tires here at Algarve, or do you need to pit, get it done, get a new set of fresh boots on there, and get back out on circuit? These factors will keep drivers guessing, thinking, and everyone in the pits working out their next plan. So at the front, it's Bluchnout, Stradum, and Bierkus who are running in tow. We do see one car that was off circuit behind them, and that's Jan VDV trying to get himself going. He's very, very slow though, and I do think he went and lost the car, got a little bit of damage to it, and now just lifting to allow the field to come through before retaking the racing line and trying to get himself okay.
That might be a bit of damage on the rear.
That is the showboat. Okay, bye-bye. Good thing this is flipping PG because, sorry, I'm going to call it here, disrespectful during a race. Please do us a favor, go away.
Especially with other drivers fighting around for a championship.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Sean Stradum and Bluchnout fighting out. Gerrit Bierkus in third place, trying to have their race. Everyone giving it absolutely everything they can. Bierkus sits with a 1:45.3 and still pushing harder and harder.
So absolutely, Stephen. You mentioned earlier regarding the damage model of LMU. Now, what I heard was apparently a yellow bumper or yellow body panel doesn't really affect anything regarding how the car performs, but it does, from my knowledge and how the car normally works, is there is a bit of an effect regarding the aero of the car. I mean, it does affect. I can tell you from the little spine that I did on from the camera that we have on on the LNR pit wall of Paul Venter. His front bumper is a bit of yellow damage. I do not know, unfortunately, damage that it is on Martin Jacobs' car, but I do think that it's a bit of a soft hit on the front right of Paul Venter's car, so that bumper is definitely damaged, and I do believe that the side panel or even the side skirt of the Mercedes of Jacobs will be carrying some amount of damage there, which will affect the drive of the cars, no matter if it's minimal. That if it's orange, as you said, it will affect the mechanical grip, meaning the car will be absolutely struggling to find any form of pace when it goes around and circling around the circuit.
Sean Stradum, take a look at this as Gerrit Bierkus managed to close up the distance to Bluchnout. Sean Stradum in second place, trying his luck. And, well, this is going to be an interesting run because Bluchnout has tried to break away from Sean Stradum, but both of them losing a little bit of top end and a little bit of pace has allowed Gerrit Bierkus to get into the train and now into that slipstream to move forward. I mean, honestly, this is a tough one. This is going to be a hard call, and this is where, with 55 minutes to go, do you pit on the 40 halfway and move forward, or now that the competition's close to you, do you continue on the drive? Do you see how far you can go? Martin Jacobs in fourth place is way out from the train, both behind him and ahead of him, and now having to figure out what is going to be the big plan to move forward. And unfortunately, Chris Collison is off the back of Herman Percival, who Herman's a little bit closer to Martin Jacobs to get somewhat of a tow at this stage of the game. Paul Venter and Kobe Turan, they're in a little bit of no man's land with Brandon Holzhausen, Rob van der Heever, Gerard van der Venter and Lucas Joubert rounding out the field. And it does look like that Johan has quit. Okay, cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the fight out on circuit. Here we have the closing gap here now. This is the third, second, and fourth of the championship. All of them fighting to close that gap to Martin Jacobs. Martin Jacobs in fourth will still be scoring a good chunk of points, But this is pretty much the consolidation prize for these three cars. If they're able to get close to one another and close the gap down, it might play in their favor. Otherwise, it will not. With Blugnoot hoping to close the gap more, and maybe a bit of a penalty coming in later for Martin Jacobs, which will drop him down the order. But that is, of course, for a later discussion. Drivers are now focusing on what they need to do with only a 45 minutes left in the race. We did mention it can be a sprint race for an hour and 20 minutes. However, it is not always possible. It is burning on the driver as well as on the car. Car takes strain, setup takes strain, the tires are being pushed to their limits. So rather than my 2 cents, might not always work out for everyone, is just circulate normally, and in the final 30 to 20 minutes, it's full gas, no brakes, push the car out of its wheel nuts and get out of slipstream in order to close down any sort of attack, or even the gap that you have to the car in front of you, or even behind you, just extend it a bit more.
It's good to see the drivers giving it everything they can. It's just all now a strategy game to see who has got the fuel saving kicking in and who is not fuel saving, who's protecting tires. As you know, Sean Schramm and Blugnoot, they've attacked each other at the beginning, then lifted off. They went to protect each other. Gerrit Bierkes and Martin Jacobs, they were on the solid attack from start to finish. Now, the question is, have they burned up enough fuel? That being said, we do have an ability with our timing tower turned off and we go to our HUD. We should be able to see what those fuels are looking like here on the circuit at the moment for each of the different cars. And this is Sean Stradham's one. As we can see, still in the green with the Porsche for his virtual energy. This gives us a bit of an idea of how much they can push these cars. Virtual energy is essentially a virtual tank that helps bring racing a bit closer. And we can see Blugnoot and Stradham similar in their fuel usage. For Bierkes, he's also there, but used up a tad little bit more. Martin Jacobs managing to carry a lot of momentum through, but Herman Percival has also used a bit in the tank. So a couple of drivers using a little bit more than planned during the course of this race, trying to see what they can do. I mean, Brandon Holzhausen is a very good case in point at the moment to try and stay a little bit closer to the field. And he is going to be the first one that's going to be looking at pit lane. Rob van der Heever can go a little bit longer, so as Gerard van der Venter and Lucas Joubert. It will go a bit further. So Brandon Holzhausen is in the danger zone at the moment. And let's see how it goes. So an interesting call, an interesting time, and where they're going to be able to move forward in this race. Blugnoot, Stradham, and Bierkes stay in for the mix.
Still a very close fight between all the drivers out there, so it is something to take note though. And virtual energy, it's something that I've pretty much explained to myself is a ballast within, not ballast, a limitation on the fuel. So in order to get the cars to spend the same amount of time within the pits, drivers are all capped in terms of how much fuel they can get into the pit, into their box, well, into their tanks, do not exceed a certain time limit. But they do have to be in the pits for a minimum amount of time, I believe, or I might be a bit wrong there. However, that is what virtual energy is. It's your total energy compared to the drivers around you, but also what you're allowed to have within your tank at the time. And Sean Stradham playing a very smart game here by going and saving as much fuel as possible by just sitting close to the likes of Blugnoot. Blugnoot at the front, punching that hole through the air, meaning more fuel being used, more on throttle, more fully flat out racing compared to any of the cars behind them.
With Blugnoot, Stradham and Bierkes continuing their fight between the three, it's going to be one close fight between the championship at the moment, because remember, Bierkes needs to go up through the order, and it looks like Stradham not fighting too harshly into turn one there after the slipstream, keeps right onto the back of that Lamborghini, but there was no defending the line. So realizing, hang on, I'm going to hold my pace. If you happen to get ahead of me, so be it. C'est la vie on that case. But that means that he's going to utilize Bierkus to get closer to Bluchnote to go on the attack, knowing that Bierkus and Bluchnote are fighting harder in the championship with one another, and take it back to the start of the race. Bierkus and Bluchnote not giving each other an inch in the fight.
Absolutely, and that is what close racing is about. Absolutely no possibility of making things easy. It's just making it all that bit more fun for the drivers as they try and go out and fight it for this title. But it is going to be quite tricky though, with Stradom dropping now, allowing Bierkus to slip through. So he has maybe changed his idea of what he wants to do. They do need to be careful these front three, as this will allow Martin Jakobs to close the gap more and more. We went from a 4-second a lap ago to only almost being under 3 seconds. So drivers need to, these three need to be very mindful of what's going to happen behind them, and also how this is going to be going. So it's a lot of things in the air, Stephen, not something that you just can predict from a crystal ball. It's strategy, setup, hoping you have what you have underneath you in order to hunt down the guys after getting an accident. It's a whole lot of stuff that needs to play to favor there. I'm not sure. Let's take a look as the car comes flying past there. If that front left corner of the Mercedes, the one that took the hit, if it is any shape or form bent a little bit, the car does look to be in relatively good functioning shape there. Maybe just slight ding. It looks relatively fine. It actually looks quite good for that first corner there, not washing out and spilling out over the white line. Both these drivers might be getting a bit lucky, but
it's definitely
minimal.
It's definitely looking okay, and might be because they were both sitting at a similar speed when the contact was made, and just having rotation on the tires hurting it. So that is an effect coming into play. The drivers will have to see how it all works out. I mean, these are always some tough times for drivers to think after spins, after close racing, who can move forward. I mean, Johan Bluchnote and Bierkus, they are close to one another, but not going on the attack. Once again, leaning more into the strategy side. But I do want to take a look further down the field, as we do see Bierkus trying to close up under braking and just not close enough for the attack. But I do want to give a bit of a show to everyone at the back. Rob van der Heever and Gerard van der Venter having a brilliant go at one another. They have been stuck to each other's bumpers throughout this race thus far, and Rob van der Heever is not making it any easier for Gerard to get any closer to him. Then there's advantage in sector 2, where Gerard seems to be a lot quicker. He's able to get it under braking, which leans on he's got some aero to help stop that little bit later, but just hasn't got the straight line compared to Rob van der Heever. That is once again a setup thing coming into play. You can just see under braking, closes up at a rate of knots, then losing out that little bit of drive. But it's a back and forth yo-yo effect in two of the same cars to battle it out. This is what gets a little bit interesting with a one-make series, is who's got the upper hand, who's figured out the car enough to move forward, because the BOP is the same, the cars are the same, the aero packages are the same. It comes down to driver and setup to make them move their way to the top. I mean, these are little factors that have big implications, and they are also fighting for the champ in their respective positions in the championship and pushing as hard as they can. But at the moment, Johan Bluchnote, Bierkus and Stradom keep at the top 3. Martin Jakobs, along with Herman Percival, Chris Collison, Paul Venter in 7th, Kirby Turan, Brandon Holthuizen, Rob van der Heever, Gerald van der Venter, Lucas Joubert round out our field at the moment. That is still rolling. 2 DNFs, one being Johan van der Venter and Neil Greening going and rounding out the pack as they keep the pressure on one another. So it's interesting to see that drivers not getting to the line for various reasons, but we also get to see drivers giving it their absolute all in this championship. This is what they've been waiting for and had to practice a week to get to. This is time, effort put in for a lot of these drivers to really stand at the fight. So, I mean, this is great stuff. And something that is being brought up by a virtual grandstand is Bluchnote and Bierkus reliving a previous rivalry from ACC. There's respect between them. but there is a underlying rivalry. Going back to what we said at the beginning of the show, is there's an inter-team battle, there's a driver battle, rivalries that have been formed across time are now on the circuit, going and having a full go at one another. Gerard van der Vente and Rob van der Heever, we don't get to talk about them much. Gerard ahead of Rob van der Heever. These two do race in multiple series with each other. They get to fight it out. The van der Vente brothers and the Griffin Sim Racing team have been working to move forward, putting a bit of pressure on each other, but also uplifting skills. As we see Rob van der Heever and Gerard giving it their absolute all, 10th and 11th position at the moment. Unfortunately for Martin Jacobs, he's tapered off the back of Sean Stratham at the moment, and now just biding his time, waiting for when the pin is pulled to go on to the attack, especially with the pit stops. Now, with 43 minutes remaining, 3 minutes until we hit the halfway mark, I'm going to ask you, Cameron, pit or no pit for these drivers before we look at virtual energy and then can make better assumptions?
It depends on how much life is left in those tires, Stephen. If they have been able to preserve them as best as possible, pit later, extend your fuel as best as possible, and go for that overcut, one can say, and then react to how the other drivers are reacting. It's a bit... Every driver has their own strategy. I do think, though, that Stratham backed off in order to save a bit more fuel and perhaps save his tires a bit more, because these two in the front are absolutely giving it their all. They are not backing off. They are not taking it easy. They are absolutely pushing it as best as they possibly can. So Stratham might be playing a bit of a smarter game, unless the Porsche just chowed through his tires before he could even do anything about it. But they do need to be mindful. Jacobs is 2.5 seconds behind them, and if Bierkes wants to make a move now and make a dash for it, he needs to do it now. In a very near future, he needs to find a way past the likes of Blichnout. Do not get pushed into Jacobs in an attempt to help him secure that championship, but rather go out and put a bit of pressure onto Blichnout. Blichnout getting a very poor drive out of the hairpin there. And now it's a fast run up into a hard-braking checking zone, and then sharp turn into a very slow uphill drag. So it's very, very difficult. But now, if you want to, I wouldn't do it just yet. See how much more you can squeeze out of those tires. If the driver doesn't feel the car's understeery, stick them out. There's enough life still left in them. If it feels understeery, get in the box, slap on some fresh new boots, and then go forward from there.
The track is very hot at the moment, and drivers having to think about that strategy as we do take a look at the onboards and see what they're doing. And with Johan Blichnout currently sitting in the orange, he will be considering his options. Bierkes, who's even lower than that. I mean, take a look, 2 notches down. He's been pushing harder and harder and running into a fueling issue at this point. That is going to be a critical run. Sean Stratham not too far off the back of it. So Blichnout between the three is in better standing, but he's also matching his teammate of Martin Jacobs. Herman Percival in the bit of a danger zone will need to consider his stop, and even more so for Chris Collison as he's getting closer and closer to the end of that virtual energy. Paul Venter, a little bit more room to play with than his teammate, but Kirby Turon, Brandon Holthuizen is down low. Brandon's going to be the first car into the pits, and he's going to be considering in the next 3 laps to get that car sorted out. Gerard van der Vente and Rob van der Heever, they've been trading blows, but have been keeping consistent in their usage of fuel and tires. I do expect them to pit a lot closer towards the end of the race, as we've now officially gone to the halfway mark, and Lucas Joubert out on circuit, managing the tires, managing the pace, and got to give it up to the man. He has managed to stick it out nearly every single race to see it through to the end, and this has just been scoring in points the whole time. Consistency is staying there. 40 minutes to go in this 1 hour and 20-minute race for round 7 of the RaceFace LMU Championship. One more round after this to deal with, and drivers looking to wrap up the championship here tonight. Martin Jacobs in 4th place, who's 25 points ahead of our fighting duo, will be looking to score enough to carry the advantage over into round 8, but not enough to take the victory as yet. Remember, 1st place is 50 points. And that has a big knock-on effect to everyone out in the front to see how they're going to move forward. I mean, these are wild moments, wild strategies, and who is going to be able to carry the momentum into the final round, or is championships going to be cemented and solidified here at Algarve? Last season, it came down to the final round. This season may be different.
Anything can happen, Stephen. That is what makes it so interesting, especially for these drivers to go out and fight it there. And you mentioned the old rivalries going all the way back to ACC. These drivers have shared track for many, many years across multiple sims. They know each other's weaknesses, they know each other's strengths. So it is going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. Do I know what's going to happen? I don't. So it's going to be something that we need to look out for and to see what's going to happen, and also what strategy they're going to be using with looking over at the virtual grandstand with KH Motorsport saying, no, these top three need to stay out there. But Straydom is losing more and more time compared to the front runners. Bierkes and pulling away more and more compared to Jacobs, is closing on him at a significant rate of knots. So strategy is going to be something that's going to define these top three. Jacobs would have been already fighting these three already if he didn't have that early collision. So all up in the air, you never know what's going to happen.
And top three on the line at this stage of the game. Going to be trying to work out the points to give you a bit of a live understanding of where the points are at this stage of the game for our top 10. But that being said, it all comes down to the pit stops. Something we've seen in previous. Go and capture it. And so far, Lucas Jabir, we did see the Mercedes pull into the pits. Lucas Jabir opting to get into the pits, along with Holthazen into the pits as well, leaving the rest of the field to slug it out between one another. There's Holthazen coming out of pit lane. He was using the most amount of fuel between all the drivers, and now just seeing it through to the bitter end for 37 minutes. Can he stick it out to move forward?
Absolutely, Stephen. It's a lot of questions going on there, and while you're busy out there calculating some of the results there with your nifty little calculator there on the side, we take a look again here. Harry Bierkes had the pace to dispatch of Sean Straydom after following close on by, and as KH Motorsport in the virtual grandstand pointed out, saying Straydom was possibly trying to save fuel and pit a lap after P1 and 2. You can do that, but he needs to be careful. Jacobs is underneath that Porsche's wing in a very, very short while. You just see him coming over the crest there off the hill before going downhill. Is he playing it too safe? That is the question that he needs to ask himself, and as we as commentators also ask ourselves, is he playing it too safe? Is he risking it too much? We do not know. It's as the Porsche tires just gone completely off, or is it absolutely gone out the window? So drivers, it's all in the air. It's keeping all of us in the virtual grandstand as well as the commentary box on the edge of our seat to know what is going to be the plan. Will they be boxing on the 30-minute mark? Will they be boxing later? Or will they be boxing even earlier? We have to keep a close eye on this as they round at the final corner over the last little bit of the roller coaster. And as I say that, Harry Bierkes dumping into the pits to get his stop done and dusted. This has freed up Jan Blichner to now go, and that also pulled the trigger for Sean Straydom, following in the Lamborghini of Stingers Racing and promoting up Herman Percival, as well as Kirby Tron, Paul Fainter, Gerard VDV, and Rob van der Heever and Chris Collison and Brandon Holzhausen all up into a better position.
Now,
Pulling the trigger too early, we do not know.
I mean, this is a moment that can make or break, and the RTA team opting that they are going to continue pushing a little bit harder. Kirby getting past Sean Straydom at the moment, who waits to come out. Bierkes as well. Gerald van der Venter and Rob van der Heever, they fight out against one another, but I think they're a little too far back as Bierkes leaving pit lane now with Sean Straydom following just ahead. Sean Straydom got a shorter stop than Bierkes, and now will be on the defense between them. And now you've also got a double pit stop for Gerard and Rob diving into pit lane to get themselves sorted out. For Bierkes and Straydom, this is a run, but Bierkes gets a penalty. Bierkes gets a penalty for speeding out of pit lane, and that has just solidified where the championship is going to be. Because if Blichnote has a perfect stop, he's got a perfect run here. Birkus will need to pull into the pits, and that has successfully killed his run into second place in the championship. Not what he wanted to have. A critical moment taken away by just too hot off the trigger.
I do know they said that trigger finger sometimes goes and bites one. From a competitive air rifle shooter's point of perspective, from my side, yes it does, because you do not have your breathing correct and you sway your body, and then you just, instead of hitting a perfect bullseye, you pull out a 4. If you know 10-meter air rifle shooting, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, go read up. It's quite an interesting sport, compared, also interesting as such as well, sim racing. But it is going to cost Blichnote, not Blichnote, Birkus quite a bit of a chunk in points. Steven trying to recalculate everything there, so I'm going to talk a bunch of nonsense to give him some time as his brain is working out, and I'm just seeing some steam coming out of his ears here. But it is going to shake up the entire championship. That will put his hopes for second place in the championship a bit on the side, a bit of a kick right in the stomach, and that's always painful if you've ever been in that side, even if it's in rugby. But it is going to be interesting for Johan Blichnote. How is he going to respond compared to his closest rivals? Will Martin Jacobs go into the pits, or will Johan Blichnote now go into the pits? That is the next question that we need to find out to see what is going to happen here.
It actually doesn't matter, because Martin Jacobs now has a top 3 secured. So unless he falls out of it, Herman Percival, Paul Venter, Kubi Turan, Sean Straden, Chris Collison to get themselves sorted out, it's game over. There's no way of pulling it from the brink, as we do see Birkus pulling out of pit lane after serving a drive-through. He's in 8th position, 32 minutes to go. Unless something happens to this car that drops him down behind Blichnote and even behind the likes of Birkus, he's taken the championship. He is walking away as the champion here tonight at RaceFace.Pro.
Is that a little bit of commentator's curse?
Just putting it out there. That one single mistake has not only affected Birkus in a very, very negative way, it's also allowed Jacobs close enough to the sharp end of the field that even if he comes second and allows Blichnote to get that 50 points, he still has the advantage heading into the final round. And for that, he's managed to get the win. So this is a very interesting call, and unfortunately going and putting a monster impact on the championship. So I did say 50 points. I want to correct myself. It's 37 points for first place. And at the moment, Blichnote will be scoring that 37 points. That's going to bump up his total to 195 points if he remains where he is. 31 points go to second place, and that will bump up Martin Jacobs to 214 points. Blichnote, unfortunately, down in 8th position, will only score 12 points at the end of this race, and will be at 160. Brandon Kruger not scoring any points, so will not have a movement up, and the likes of Sean Stratham, who's in 6th, will score 16 points. And Sean Stratham is going to usurp Brandon Kruger, and, well, actually not. He will sit on 101, and Brandon Kruger on 104, so that does bring a little bit into play here. So much going on. Critical racing, and what a moment made up in time that the drivers get to have this. I mean, where do you put yourself? Where does it all go wrong? Herman Percival and Paul Venter are now into the pits with 30 minutes remaining, but when you get a drive-through penalty to that extent, knowing that it wasn't from a knock, it wasn't from getting forced offline, this was just you coming off the button too early. It lays the blame solely on the driver, and the driver will have to put that to the back of the head focus on trying to move up through the order. I mean, it's critical now to try and carry some points into the fight, because at the moment, Bluchnote has got the run over Bierkus, and I'm sure it's going to be a thought that's sitting there for anyone that is sitting and chatting to the driver. It's going to be, right, let's just focus on what we need to do to move forward, how we can bring some of this championship back and see what we can do. But at the moment, the gap between Bluchnote and Bierkus is the difference between how deep is the Mariana Trench at this stage of the game.
It does make it difficult, and you did mention it. I mean, a good driver can compartmentalize what happens. Yes, it's self-inflicted. You unfortunately pulled the trigger too early to say, I want to go now instead, but the steward said, listen, regulation says you need to go from here on. So it is something where compartmentalizing will be playing a key factor in how Gerrit Bierkus will be going and attacking this entire situation. 28 minutes or more, 28 minutes to go left in the race. He might get lucky and gain a few positions if he can get past the likes of Kirby John. But after that, he's got some of the fast guys in front of him, the likes of Paul Venter. Paul Venter just coming out of the pits and did his stop. He did not fix his front bumper. I can confirm to you that. The team did not have any gaffer tape there to go and patch it up. So probably said, not enough damage on the car in order to patch it up as much as possible, as we do see one of the Mercedes there running very wide. So it is kind of interesting to go forward from that on. But now Paul Venter, bit of a recovery drive, needs to hunt down Chris Collison, which will put him right in the fight for 5th place, which will help his championship hopes, I believe.
It will move him up in the championship, and I've actually just worked out the top 10, so my math teacher will be very impressed with that one. Finally, it's all coming to be. There we go, all sorted. But to take you through what it's looking like at the moment, it is going to be Martin Jacobs, followed by Johan Bluchnote, Gerrit Bierkus into 3rd place on 116 points, Brandon Kruger on 104 with Sean Schraden on 101, Chris Collison on 84 with Herman Percival on 75, Ruan Kleinans will sit on 64, and Paul Venter will be on 60 at the moment, trying to move his way up.
As you said that, Steve, Paul Venter just had a bit of a spin there off screen, and unfortunately that did spike his tires again, and has gotten into the wall from the onboards that I see from his team. Unfortunately, the rear is just having too much heat in the tires, and it just goes and spins it around, and something in the car is not working, unfortunately, going from bad to worse to absolutely abysmal, dropping from 6th all the way down into 8th, and has now a lot of work to do for his drive back up. However, just again, he loses it again. It seems like that car, unfortunately, is not going to be seeing the end of this line again for the LNR BMW on the side. So, from bad to worse, to absolutely gut-wrenching. That is racing to you, ladies and gentlemen.
And I have to say, I did say Mariana Trench. It is a vast amount of points to go and consider when you only 1st place gets you 37 points. That's it. 37 for 1st, 31 for 2nd, and unfortunately there is a big point gap between the likes of Bluchnote to Gerrit Bierkus. So as you said, it's going to have to really move forward. It's going to have to really think about the strategies and strategy calls that need to come into play. So Bierkus is going to try and maximize that grip. He's going to maximize his pace. The question is, has he got enough to stay at the sharp, get right back into the sharp end of the field to hold on? Because at the moment, he is in a bit of a rough standing, and to be fighting out from 2nd all the way further down is a tough call, as we do see both RTA cars pulling into the pits. Jacobs and Bluchnote getting themselves sorted out. Jacobs even in 2nd place.
Box.
Whoopsie, that's not quite how you want to do it.
Just see the team jacking it up and moving it out there. But Steve, I do have a bit of a side note and a bit of sad news. Paul Fenter, the LNR team, has decided to retire the car, unfortunately not continuing his race. That's our third retiree for tonight, unfortunately, followed by Johan van der Venter as well as Neil Greening. So that leaves Sean Stradom, the lone LNR car, fighting at the front as he hunts down the two RTA cars. Now, this is what we need to see. Blichnout out, Jacobs out. They are both on cold tires. Stradom just coming across the line now, so 10 seconds, that is not enough. That is going to be a monstrous drive in order to get past these two, and these two will be flying in formation, I can promise you that.
All he can hope is Fuji to repeat itself, and as you said, Paul is out. We also got word from the pit from Johan van der Venter saying unfortunately Paul is out as well, so the two of them keep now joining each other out on the virtual grandstands and watching on as the only remaining two LNR cars that are out on the circuit is Brandon Holthazen and the likes of Sean Stradom. Those are the two remaining cars from the team, and unfortunately they are in a bit of a hard drive. Herman Percival will have to see what he can do. Chris Collison, Gerrit Bierkes, along with Kirby Turan, Brandon Holthazen a little bit further back, Gerard van der Venter, Rob van der Heerden, and Lucas Joubert round out the field of the remaining cars. Three, unfortunately, out of the running. Various issues coming into play and taking them out from damage all the way through to mechanical, and the team's just saying there's no way of keeping it going. Let's rather try and get ourselves ready for the next race. And I mean, it's a blow. It's never nice to see drivers not finish a race. It's never nice to see drivers losing out of a race for various reasons. Once you see the green, you've got to see the checkered. But for the likes of Blichnout and Jacobs, if they maintain where they are, Martin Jacobs is secured in his victory. Blichnout is secured to move up into second place without too much of an issue, with Bierkes sitting in sixth place and has got a huge amount to catch up. I mean, 9 seconds to Chris Collison, his teammate, and then beyond that you have to catch up to Percival, who's 10 seconds off the back of these two that are to Sean Stradom, who's 8 seconds off the back of these two. You start wondering, what do you need to do? Is ladylike in the pits? Can something happen? Change your weather conditions, twist it out. I mean, these are some tough times out on the circuit, but it's also tough times for the drivers to refocus, look forward, and move on. It's not game over. It is round 7. There's one more round to bring it back, and there is a possibility of drivers non-scoring. We've so far seen every round there has been a couple of non-scorers, and that has influenced the championship up and down. That influences who sits where. The question is, are they going to be able to remain with it? We saw Blichnout and Jacobs at Fuji come down to the final 2 minutes of the race. Jacobs and Blichnout had a go at one another. We know that RTA has been told it's gloves off racing, enjoy it. Are they going to pull the trigger? Is the redness going to sit in? Or is there going to be that voice in the head that's worked out the points and said, right, hold position, don't worry about it, see it through to the end. You've got 20 minutes to keep up the momentum. For Sean Stradom, give him his due, despite being down on the pace, he's trying to keep up that little bit of momentum. He stays in third place. Sean Stradom is actually going and fighting out with Brandon Kruger by 3 points. 3 points separation for that 4th place. And that is a really, really well done move on Sean Stradom, who hasn't had the best of seasons, but has slowly been picking up. If you take into effect that he was missing out round 4 and round 5, I mean, that's a hell of a jump to bring it back to the sharp end. He was 18th in round 1, 6th in round 2, 1st in round 3, 2nd in round 6, going and moving up due to a penalty that came into effect that went and moved them around. But at the moment, Martin Jacobs is yet to be kicked off the podium. He's going to be finishing yet again with the podium. His teammate, however, has had only one race being off the podium. Jan Blechnout finishing in round 5 in 19th position.
Absolutely, Stephen. There's a lot of variables there going out there, and a great comeback drive from Sean Stradom there of LMU. But now, a question that someone raised though is, will Chris Collison let through his teammate in an attempt to help points? I do know and I do understand that everyone wants to have good points and good finishes, but you also then consider, listen, team championship won't make much of a difference if they swap around before the team side, but you also want to help your teammate go and be a good teammate and help them try and hunt down the likes, well, any form of a championship position. It's what any good teammate, not really. I mean, I've seen a few teammates go and drive as hard as possible to make it difficult for their other teammate, Max Verstappen in 2021. I will not point fingers to Brazil, but it's a lot of stuff that will hang in the air. And well, there we got confirmation. We just got confirmation, Stephen, from Sumari, the team manager for Stinger, saying if it is needed, they'll make the call. But third in the standings is the goal for Bierke. So they've set their sights on third. Hopefully they won't have to make the call. But
this is the thing for one driver. If they do the twist, if they swap round, Chris Collison falls into the clutches of Herman Percival.
And yeah, it's difficult.
That will throw 6th and 7th on its head, with Chris Collison with less of an advantage to Herman Percival.
And Sumari did mention Collison had a bit of a bad run last week, so he can do with the points, and Bierke does know that. So it's a whole hodgepodge team playing the cards close. They've got their protocols going. As long as it's not papaya rules, it's perfectly fine. But we do see these two, Martin Jacobs. I can't make the call here this time. I don't think Jacobs is going to make a move on Blechnout.
Yeah, our blue flag, Rob van der Heever, minds over to the right, utilising a bit of track knowledge there, deciding to allow the drivers to come through as a blue flag car, being a gentleman. Blue flag rules means that you hold your race line, you be predictable, and it's up to the faster cars to get around you. In terms of Rob van der Heever, minding out of the way, you saw the quick flash of light saying, you go guys, enjoy, have fun, carry on racing. Being a gentleman, a tip of the hat there. And it's good to see a bit of track knowledge coming in, knowing that he's not going to lose too much time and he can focus on the momentum moving forward. What can he do to sustain himself in this race? And also, for Rob van der Heever, who holds 10th at the moment, he's trying to close down to Gerard van der Vente further up the road. This is the toe he needs. This is a toe he's been missing for quite some time, and he's starting to taper off now, but it's just enough to close that little bit of a distance that he has to Van der Vente further up the road. So a little bit of a use of the front runners. Yes, they're running quicker pace, but it doesn't mean that you have to jump out the way. He utilized it to pull himself a bit closer and focus onto the charge. Once again, I have to go and point out, everyone's running so close to the limit of what they need to do, and if you take a look at the fuel usages, Blechnout is on the up at the moment, with Martin Jacobs doing exactly the same. Then Sean Stradom, a lot more to play with, can push a lot harder to see what he can do, with the likes of Herman Percival also got an advantage to push harder. Chris Collison, a little bit less so, but his teammate Gerrit Bierke, who has closed the distance, can keep on the aggressive push. Kirby Turan, unfortunately, a little bit lower than planned, so we'll have to be a bit cautious for the next 15 minutes over Brandon Holthuizen, who can keep going. He's got a lot of room to play with here. Gerard van der Vente has got quite a bit, but not as much as Rob van der Heever, who beats out everyone at the moment. He's made sure to fill up the tank and keep the push going. Obviously, going and reading the latest reports out in South Africa that fuel is starting to run out, and he's opted to top the tank up and carry on his merry way. So these are some interesting factors coming into play, some interesting factors that may go and battle it out, and who is going to stay at the top end of the field. There's so many little nuances that I wouldn't call the race done as yet. We saw in 2 minutes how quickly the podium could have changed that Fuji. We've seen at the start and at the end of a race this season how things go on. As Bluchnout Jakob Stratum, along with Herman Percival, round out your top 4. Chris Collison in 5th position has his teammate now closing up the gap, 3.4 seconds. And I do think the call has been made to give each other a little bit of room to see if that swap is a possibility. Kirby Turan a little bit further down in 7th position with Brandon Holthuizen in 8th, followed by Gerald van der Venter, Rob van der Heever, Lucas Joubert rounding out our field. The last of the runners at the moment. You can see Lucas now having Brandon Holthuizen, quick flash of lights, takes a dive. Lucas going and providing that room, and it's an easy pass down into the hairpin. He kept himself to the right hand side, allowed Holthuizen to go later on the brakes, get himself into the hairpin, and not to compromise both their exits to keep moving forward.
Absolutely, some good racing there, and also well mindful racing there as we do see drivers now entering the final 13 minutes of the race. And final little note there from Sumri saying she did some points calc also, Stevens, saying that the boys are open to race. The points for both will be fine if Bjerkes does pass Collison. So we do know that the Stingers Racing team says boogity boogity boogity, let's go racing, but it's also what's to lose there. So it's all about what's up for grabs. That's the question.
Now I do want to point out this is preliminary results. It doesn't include if
penalties.
There's any penalties that come into play, which we've already
and we
seen.
do know.
We've seen a penalty kick in for Bluchnout in Fuji, which moves Stratum into 2nd place. Stratum finished in 3rd on track, but got 2nd after a penalty was imposed. So, which brings back Martin Jacobs got the penalty, which changed the championship. So, it may be decided in the stewarding box, and for the likes of Martin Jacobs, he's just flashing his lights non-stop to Bluchnout, which could be a bit of a hello, hi moment, but at the same time can act as a distraction as well to the driver, which is going to change things up as Bluchnout goes top right and Jacobs not taking it. So the two of them were looking into switch, but both drivers saying, nah, we're going to hold station. We're going to hold station. But by doing that, both of them slowing down has brought Sean Stratum a lot closer to them.
And a 5-second penalty will promote Stratum actually past Jacobs. Because remember, if the two teams from the earlier collision decide to take it to, how can we say, to the stewarding box, then, or stewarding office, it is something that might throw a spanner in the works. A lot of ifs, buts, and maybes, and the only cute butt here is me.
And the, well, okay. Right. No, are we going down this road here at Algarve? Are we going down this road? No. Okay, you know what? Listen. You can keep your name on the list. Keep your name on the list. But hubris could be a factor that comes into play, and it's something we have seen as well. You can't get too comfortable out on circuit. Remember, I went and mentioned about the autopilot mode that can become a factor. That autopilot mode of just start wandering around, looking around, trying to see where things are, can land up with the drivers getting lost on circuit, missing their brake markers, going and taking things a little bit more of a careful approach or a carefree approach, can land up hurting them as well. So there is a possibility of a problem coming in self-inflicted, as we've seen like Bjerkes had, where too early off the pit limiter served him a drive-through. That little bit of a moment has cost him that his teammate is now ahead of him with 10 minutes remaining. Bjerkes needs to try and clear his teammate, and unfortunately I don't think there's enough time to catch up to Percival. to help out that championship, to bring him a little bit closer to Bluchnote, who has sustained quite a number of points over Gerrit Bierkes. Even with a victory in round 7, Bierkes can't get second place away from Bluchnote if Bluchnote stays in first. So if Bluchnote remains where he is, Bierkes will have to be happy for a third place. There is no way of him charging forward. Even if Martin Jacobs goes and lands up having a bum race next in here, or even in round 8, long as he has one good one where he's on the podium, that means that he's got the championship. He'll have to have a problem now and in the next race to throw him down. For Bluchnote, he just has to finish in the podium spots. Even now, taking the victory means that he's secured that second place. So Martin Jacobs can be that little bit of a problem for Bluchnote, and that's where I wonder if the teams between the two RTA drivers have gone and said, right, if you're gonna fight, take a more cautious approach here. Think about the long game. I mean,
it's all to play for.
We got two teammates in both the Stingers and in RTA that can influence the championship between one another in a positive fashion, but as one wins, one will lose. And that's where it comes down to, are you going to put the red mist aside, or are you going to fight for your right in the championship? Because that's what it is. It's Martin giving a wiggle waggle, going and saying he's not going to overtake to Jan Bluchnote. Once again, trying to communicate with one another. We do know on radio the two are not chatting. And then we have got Gerard van Venter, who's the next car up the road. He will be a blue flag car, does run out a bit wide, allows Bluchnote through. Martin takes the dive as well to follow suit, so well done to Gerard van Venter, but that does pick up an incident point. He's got to be careful with that, as there's still enough time for a drive-through to be handed out. So the teammates are now having a go at one another. Who is going to take the advantage in this championship? I mean, tough calls. Very, very tough calls for the drivers.
Absolutely, Stephen. And yeah, a lot of questions hanging up in the air of how the drivers will be going to navigate this. That is what they need to manage for this now as we head into the final 45 minutes of the race. So there's a lot of questions that need to go there, and we've done our speculations, we've done our little calculations, but we do not know what's going to on. I mean, the drivers, again, we just had confirmation pretty much with the flashing of the lights and slowing down that the RTA drivers are not sharing the same Discord call. So they are separate from one another. There's no communication, or there might be, but they might be different. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how the drivers will be attacking this entire situation.
Well, it's interesting also to point out Martin Jacobs, who keeps swinging the steering wheel to give some form of communication. It's got to be careful, because it's very easy to lose the car by doing that. You're constantly upsetting the car with rapid movements. Take a look between Chris Collison and Gerrit Bierkes. They're not doing that. They're fighting each other, but at the same time, no sudden movements. They know the balance of the cars is critical, as Chris Collison loses out to Bierkes under braking, and Bierkes is able to get that movement up. He's able to open up a bit of a distance to Chris Collison and can just pull him along for the remaining 5.5 minutes left of this race. But an interesting tell between drivers, where Martin Jacobs, I think at this stage of the game, knows he's in a safe space and is having fun behind the wheel, if I could put it like that, with lots of rapid movement, where Bluchnote, on the other hand, is just eyes forward, keeping those lines absolutely right, knowing the balance of the car needs to be there to keep the charge going forward. And it takes one wrong move, the balance to shift just beyond your control, and it can land up with these cars into a wall in a heartbeat, or getting a drive-through penalty, which none of them want. And considering Sean Stratum's 3.5 seconds back, I would start putting my focus back into the race. What do I need to do to just keep the momentum? I don't want to worry about rapid movements on the car. I don't want to think about that. I want to think about entrances and apexes instead of allowing a competitor that, come Fuji, was right into the mix of the two.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, and with this weaving and wagging, you mentioned it. It takes one small over correction and that car goes bye-bye into a wall. We've seen it multiple times happen before. Drivers getting overzealous. We're like, we're going to relax. It's not the end of the world. I've got my race going. And then it can just snap on you in the next moment. So you have to be very, very careful. You have to be very, very mindful of what you want to do regarding that. So comes and goes. All up to how the drivers are going to be able to manage it.
And take a look at Sean Stratham going and closing up at a rate of knots at this point from 3.5 seconds to 2.9 seconds. In 3.5 minutes, it is a lot to ask, but, and this is a big one, if he's able to get ahead of Martin Jacobs, that does take away some of Jacobs' points from the championship. It's not enough to stop him from claiming the championship, but it is enough to just make life a little bit more difficult in through the end. So tough calls, tough moves, and we'll have to see how the drivers can contend with it. I mean, these are just little factors to come in and seeing who moves forward.
Absolutely. So now we head into the final 3 minutes, so about 2 more laps left to go in the tank for these drivers in order for them to cross that final line. So it's this lap, but then one more. When next time they see that little flag, well, Jim the flag waiter or Farney, I don't know. Steven has all the names of them. For me, they're just, hey guy, what up guy? That's might be a bit rude, but they have 2 more laps to go, 1.5 for now, pretty much, and then they will finally wrap up the 7th round here at Portimao. And it's one that has had many of us scratching our heads. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how things are going to end. We can only provide preliminary results as things might be changing afterwards. So it's all to question for, as we do see the RTA guys just flying in formation there as we go around for the last few minutes around here in Portimao.
It's going to be Bluchnout, Jacobs, Sean Stratham as it stands. Sean Stratham has done a fantastic job to close up to the RTA team, but I don't think there's enough time to close the distance and to go for the fight. It does take a minute 45, minute 46 to get around the circuit. The drivers running out of the time. They've got essentially a lap left to go and slug it out. And unless the RTA team get caught up behind a back marker that hemorrhages time to allow Sean Stratham to close up and stay in for the fight for the final lap, it's going to be a tough one. It is going to be a tough one, but still a well-done fight as we enter our final lap of the race. Lucas Joubert out in front. We'll see all 3 of our top 3, Bluchnout, Jacobs and Stratham, going to be coming on by. He will give a little bit of room for them to go. And we saw Gerard van der Vente exit the final corner. 4th place is Herman Percival with Gerrit Bierkes miles off him at the moment, trying to close down that 4.8 seconds gap. But with 1 lap to go, it's gonna be a hard push. I don't think it's possible to get it done unless a mistake happens. Chris Collison will be in 6th with Kirby Turan, Brandon Holthuizen, Gerald van der Vente out there in the shell colours with Rob van der Heer of the Griffin Sim Racing team in 10th. Lucas Joubert will be rounding out the field, finishing ahead of Paul Venter, Johan van der Vente and Neil Greening right at the last. So always some good moments, always some close moments. And Sean Stratham 1.8 seconds back, even if he gets ahead of Martin Jacobs. Martin takes the championship. He's scored enough to get that breathing room and to stay it out. So at this point, holding back Stratham is the benefit of Bluchnout to have that happen. For Jacobs, it's all right, I'll hold Stratham back, you take the victory, we've opened up the run. But as the 2 RTA team, kept it nose to tail with one another, and same as Fuji, Sean Stratham right at the last, was able to pull the pin out of the hand grenade and get right onto the back of them. Unfortunately, just not enough tar left on the circuit to go and get it done and dusted, as Blichtnote heads to the line to look for the victory and will be scoring it and getting himself into second place. Martin Jacobs will take second and the championship here in round 7, wrapping it up, getting it done and dusted. Sean Straden finishes up in third. Herman Percival will finish up in 4th place, with Gerrit Bierkes, Chris Collison going and tailing right behind Kirby Turan, Brandon Holthuizen, Gerard van der Venter, Rob van der Heerden, and Lucas Joubert, who unfortunately takes a bit of an excursion at the moment, will finish up in 11th place on a stellar run and putting on a bit of a show. Now it's the right time to hook out those burnouts and have a lot of fun. But for the RTA team, a 1-2 victory is never a bad thing. For Martin Jacobs, it is a championship victory for him here at round 7 in the provisional results. But Cam, what a race we've had. What an interesting race that lots of little factors came into play. Everyone having to think about what they need to do to stay at the sharp end of the field. We do have a driver that unfortunately was a DNF, and we get to find out what exactly happened to him. It's Logistical Nightmares Racing, Paul Venter. Paul, welcome to the commentary box right at the end of the race. You've been sitting out watching the racing, cheering on your teammates. Unfortunately, not your race tonight. Can you walk us through what happened out there?
I gambled and I took front tires, and I think that caught me out into turn 1. And then LMU did something weird and it changed my view to bonnet cap, and that completely screwed me. So the field of view then was horrendous, and turning, I'm turning expecting it to turn slow, and then the rear just kept coming around and I couldn't change the view. So I didn't have a button map for that. It said on default to be on cockpit view. So yeah, that's all she wrote. But was a great race, good battle with Martin. The spin, I haven't looked at it. I don't know if it's, I think more that's just like a 50-50. But I'll have a look at it afterwards. You know, if it's on me, then I shall apologize to Martin for that. But it was good racing. I enjoyed that. Straight on gambled. He took 2 left tires, and it almost paid off.
Right at the end, he seems to pull the pin out of the hand grenade just that little bit too late. Brandon Holthuizen also finishing up in 8th place. Good run on him. From a Logistical Nightmare Racing's team perspective, the season itself, I mean, this has been a season of rivalries between teams, between drivers, everyone giving it their all. What's your take looking back at the season that hasn't had the best of runs, but you've had some very, very close racing with a lot of the drivers out on circuit, and as a team principal, getting to see your drivers charging their way into the top 10?
Yeah, man. You know, from Eleanor's point of view, you know, we're always happy. This was Stradom's first championship back, really, on doing something not iRacing. So he's still getting to grips with it. He's not really putting in practice, but not too much. So it was just a nice one just to get our feet wet again and get us going. Yeah, the boys had fun, and we're getting ready to focus on the online championships that's coming up in 3 weeks with LMU. So yeah, we're excited, but this was good fun. Yeah, RTA, they quick, so you got to really be on your game to challenge them. So you know, they are the team to beat at this stage. So well done to them. And I think I heard you guys saying that Martin has taken the championship. So well done to him for winning taking the championship. Congratulations. You know, that's awesome.
Accomplishment of note. Paul, before we let you go, Cameron, any questions that you'd like to ask Paul before we let him go and have a chat to everyone out in the virtual grandstand?
Oh, no question from my side, though. Only just a bit of hard luck there from your side, Paul. There. But I do believe that you will be back next time around, faster, stronger, and a bit more of the LNR boys taking the fight to the RTA guys here for our, I think, season 4 of LMU. I've lost count so many times already, but I do think Next season will be a better season for you. Luckily, this time you showed a bit more fight with the BMW compared towards the Lexus that seemed to have your number last season around. But yeah, unfortunately, some bad luck there out there tonight on Algarve there. But I'm going to let you go celebrate with your driver, and well done on a good result from the LMU perspective for Sean Stradle.
Awesome. Thanks, gents. And yeah, as always, thanks to the community and everyone that joined us to race. It's always fun. And, even though it's competitive and we do get heated, it's all just a game, and we enjoy the banter and the fun that goes with it. So yeah, thanks to everyone, and see you all in the next time.
Great stuff. Paul Fenter coming and having a chat to us. And you can hear that little bit of a disappointment in the voice with things going wrong, but still managing to keep himself in there, keeping positive for the team. I mean, Cameron, these are things that we talk about. These are moments we talk about as drivers, as team owners. But I know one team owner that's going to be rather happy, and that is RTA, with Martin Jacobs taking the championship here tonight. That makes it 2 championships in the first quarter of the race for the Mercedes driver, and came out with a bang last season and managed to get into the RTA team, and once again has proven that he's not afraid to take the fight to the sharp end of the field, not afraid to lose out a little bit of time but gain so much in experience. Unfortunately, we don't have the rest of our drivers to come and have a chat to us, like Sean Stradham, who finished up in 3rd place. 2nd place was Martin Jacobs, and your champion for this season here in LMU for season 4, and Jan Bluchnoot, who will secure himself up into 2nd place to go and fight it out. We've got one more round left. 2nd and 3rd, still a lot to go on. It's a little bit onto who finishes round 8. If Bluchnoot doesn't finish, well, that brings Bierkus a little bit closer, and it means that we're in for a race and a half. However, a finish means that he has really taken it to the top. Your thoughts wrapping up tonight's race, Cameron, as there was a lot of looking at the points, looking at the drivers, trying to work out strategies, getting to see the attacks and defenses that come in, and most of the drivers taking a quieter approach to their driving.
Well, first of all, congrats to Martin Jacobs for RTA for securing the championship. Really well done to them, to that team. They have been fighting it quite a lot. So really well done to them. And I take my hats off to them. They've been trying their hardest, and to go back-to-back for the first time in 2026 is absolutely an accomplishment of note, and not something to just shrug your shoulders at. So well done to Martin Jacobs. I do know that he's also busy with some other endeavors, and I wish him all the best on those also. And I hope to see him back to defend his crown here at LMU. So really hoping to see him back on track, along with Kyle Oosthuizen and the rest of the RTA boys, Brandon Kruger, as well as Esteban Pretorius and Johan Bluchnout, a 5-car lineup that will be taking the fight to any of the other drivers, hoping to snatch that crown away from their driver as well as the team championship. So going to be interesting to see how the drivers go forward for that. Now, next week we will be heading out to the desert all the way in Bahrain. Drivers will be having to battle the heat during the day, but will be cooling a bit down with the desert moon coming into effect and just cooling down the air around there. Bahrain, beautiful little circuit, beautiful in history, and well as a lot of dramatic racing going around there. So drivers are going to be fighting out there. Yes, the championship might be wrapped up, but there is still some positions to claim for the drivers behind Jacobs, as they hope to fight out for 2nd, 3rd, and all the other positions. So don't forget to tune in next week as we head to Bahrain. But also next week will be our final round, I believe, for our ACC. Or is there still one more round left? I need to get.
We've got round 7 tomorrow, and Zandvoort in both our Pro-Am, Gold, and Silver division. That will be live streamed on air. So keep an eye on that. Championships to be wrapped up and see who can stand at the top. Will Christoph Peterson and the pros be able to be the overall fastest in ACC for this season? Season 25, a landmark season for EG Evolved RaceFace.Pro GD3 ACC Championship. And it's wonderful to have our sponsor, EG Evolved, going and fighting it out. Cam, it's been absolutely wonderful to have you back on here. Cameron Bastos, a driver last night, a commentator tonight, and going to be your commentator tomorrow night. So tune in at RaceFace.Pro. You don't want to miss it, as the battle for the team championships and for driver championships across the board are ready to go. From myself, Stephen Koenig, I'd like to thank cameraman Jim and Tim for helping us out here tonight and keeping us going, but also to our lovely sponsor, EG Evolved Simulator Rigs. If you need anything, whether you're on road simulators, track, or air, they have you covered, and are a distributor of Moza, which means if you're in for going into a motion rig, Moza's new motion rig will be coming into South Africa with EG Evolved, which is going to be rather exciting, making it one of the most affordable full motion a 4DOF rig in South Africa. We're looking forward to seeing that. I'm personally wanting to jump onto that and give it a try, and it's the first of its kind to tie into a whole ecosystem, steering, pedals, and screens as well. So it is the first of its kind. We're getting it here in SA, thanks to EG Evolved, to go and handle all the flight gear. But Cameron Bastos, thank you so much for joining us here tonight, and I'm really looking forward to our final race happening next week for LMU, and our next would be ACC having the final race. But we will have a week off. In 2 weeks' time, we'll be back with our iRacing. So, folks, like always, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification icon. A massive thank you to all our petrol heads out in the virtual grandstands, you legends that keep us going, feeding us information, and keep the racing on track. But we look forward to seeing you guys next time. From the entire production side here, we'd like to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, everybody.